anyone who's covered the Falcons, and it's funny, I was listening to, on the drive home from Wisconsin, I was listening to some podcasts, and any reporter who covers the Falcons has been completely overwhelmed with Michael Penix, Kirk Cousins stories since the NFL draft. It stunned everybody, and now that's the entire news out of Atlanta is Michael Penix, Kirk Cousins. Michael Penix actually came out and said that he finally met Kirk, and what he said was he was happy to see me and have me here. And I just told him I can't wait to work with him. So of all the rookie quarterbacks, J.J. McCarthy's behind Sam Darnold. Drake May is probably going to be behind Jacoby Brissett. Of all those sorts of situations, this is definitely the most tense one because of just the way it lays out, where Kirk Cousins is expecting to be there for multiple years, going for a Super Bowl as the guy, and now you have Michael Penix, whereas Sam Darnold and Jacoby Brissett, they know that the team invested a lot in the first round pick. Sam Darnold's young, so he's probably has a chip on his shoulder trying to prove something, but they know at the end of the day they're probably going to be replaced at some point. That's not really in Kirk Cousins' mind, and that's where all this. Even though these two guys are both super personable, super nice dudes, there's always going to be a little bit of tension, I think, in that quarterback room that I bet they overcome during the season. But it's just a little bit bizarre of like, okay, at what point is Michael Penix actually going to take over down the line here? And I don't think that that's a question in the Falcons' mind right now. Kirk Cousins is going to play the whole year. But let's just say, we're Vikings fans. Let's just say Kirk Cousins has a bad 3 or 4 game stretch, which we've seen before.
It can happen.
We've seen it before. He was great last year, but Kirk sometimes has stinkers. At what point do the Falcons fans start going, okay, enough? Like, that's where I wonder what happens next year if they have a few bad games and Kirk doesn't look great coming off the Achilles injury. He's getting sacked. When the Falcons fans, when will they turn? That's what I'm really wondering. I think they stick with Kirk no matter what the entire year, but that's the one thing that I'm paying attention to is, okay, the noise in Atlanta from outside of the Falcons, how loud is that actually going to get? That's my one concern. Do you think that's a valid one?
This is going to be an interesting situation to watch because as much as we talk about character or personality or whatever, Penix is the one where it really matters because if you have an unhappy backup quarterback, that can get really ugly really fast. Mm-hmm. We've seen it in the NFL before. But yeah, as you say, the Falcons, they're locked into Kirk Cousins this year. Realistically, unless they can find someone who's thrilled to trade for him next year, they don't really have a choice to move off of him next year. So I don't know. If Kirk Cousins puts together a couple bad games, fans are going to say things, but fans always say things, right? They're always ready for the backup quarterback to start. They're always ready to drive the starter out of town. Kirk Cousins took a lot of crap in Minnesota. This is true. The fans were often, especially in the early days, there were times we were happy with him, but there were times we weren't. I'm sure you remember. Yeah. And Kirk took it all in stride, right? It's like, look, he'll show up, he'll take care of business, he'll play his best, and you can always count on that. And as a professional football player, that just is your job. I think he'll be able to handle that. I'm hoping that Penix Jr. will be able to handle it. He said that he wants to take Kirk Cousins out fishing. That seems like the kind of thing that Kirk Cousins would be down for. So I don't know. 100%. I don't think that there's going to be any real problems between these two, but if there start being murmurings, that will turn into a fire very quickly. And I'd be less worried about the fans, but more, if you're a guy who wants to win in Atlanta, right, and you see Kirk Cousins come out and struggle and he looks old, you're going to be complaining to the wide receivers coach, the tight ends coach, the defensive backs coach, the offensive coordinator, the defensive coordinator, the head coach, the general manager, the owner. Like, you're complaining to anyone who will hear you that you want the new guy to start, and that's tough.
Well, actually, and you could also have, in Atlanta, you could have Arthur Blank coming in and saying, I want the new guy to start. That's where, even though he really wanted Kirk, you never know where there's potential for major fires in Atlanta next year. But I can also see it going in a perfect world for Atlanta. This will work out great, where, you have 2 years of Kirk Cousins playing high level football. And then Michael Penix is in a position where you have to make the tough decision of, okay, do we ride with Kirk again? Like when Aaron Rodgers kept pushing Jordan Love down the line because he was winning MVPs, at some point, you do have to make the decision of, all right, we got to play this guy. And if it works out, this is brilliant for Atlanta. And they're going to have a 26-year-old quarterback come in with 2 years experience underneath a great mentor in Kirk with guys like Drake London, Bijan in the prime of their careers. And it's blue skies in Atlanta. But there is the other side of this. I do think, though, from what you were saying, Michael Penix needing to be someone who's patient, He came out and said, my goal is to be an unselfish teammate. Not worried about playing. If I maximize potential, all that stuff will get worked out. Everything he said along the lines of any potential quarterback controversy down the road has been really reassuring if you're a Falcons fan. You can't deny that this guy, the character on Michael Penix, it seems perfect for the situation he's in, where he is actually maybe not just willing, but excited to learn behind Kirk.
And I will say, at least for the Falcons, as much criticism as they're getting, could you imagine last year for us if when Kirk went down, we had an exciting rookie or second-year quarterback behind him?
Oh, yeah.
The season would have gone so differently.
100%.
Even if we don't win any more games, right? If you're bringing out Michael Penix instead of Josh Dobbs, the season just has a totally different feel to it. So I don't know. Kirk is getting old. I know he's been a real Iron Man through his career, but he is older. Guys just get hurt more. It happens. And, maybe there'll be a little bit less pressure for him to come out if he's really not feeling well, if there's a guy they want to put in for a game or two. So I don't know.
And I
wouldn't be super worried.
One thing I wanted to talk about real quick is that a lot of people talk about the Steelers saying, okay, why didn't Atlanta go and do something like Pittsburgh, where they know they're transitioning to another quarterback soon, but as opposed to giving someone $100 million guaranteed, they have Russell Wilson now on the veteran minimum contract. They're paying $1.2 million, I believe, for him. Then they traded a 6th-round pick for Justin Fields. So it's easy to sit back and say, I think the quote from the article I read was, the Falcons are always going to Falcon. The one thing is, if you go and get Russell Wilson or Justin Fields and you're Atlanta, I don't think that doesn't really help you. They want to win. The reason they went after Kirk Cousins is because they think they can win with Kirk Cousins. So
is Justin Fields really better than Desmond Ridder?
Well, no. That's the whole thing. Is they're saying if we were going to do this waiting game where we have I don't want to say veteran with Justin Fields, but we do have an experienced player in Fields or someone like Russell Wilson come in, then we get that. Then we draft Penix and it's an easy transition. If you do that, you're just wasting this season. Like, they want to compete and win right now. That's why they got Kirk.
Yeah. And plus, you do have to keep in mind, right? It's easy to sit back and say, we knew for sure that Penix was going to be there. Mock drafts had Mahomes going in the 50s.
Yeah.
His consensus ranking was like 47 or 48. And especially, you turn the clock back to March, if you're the Falcons and you identify and you say, we think he's one of the best quarterbacks in this draft, there's no way of knowing he's going to be there at 8.
And they had
right?
him
We thought Jaden
2.
Daniels was going to ride. Yeah, so I understand why they did what they did. And as you say, they're not in the business of throwing away NFL seasons. Blank is old. They've got a lot of pieces on cheap deals that are eventually going to need to be paid up. The defense looked better. You got to strike while the iron's hot. So I think it at least makes sense. It's going to take good personalities and good coaching to manage the transition.
It seems,
but it is possible.